I made $925,000 in straight commission selling at 12% at the age of 19 without having rich parents, without having a diploma, and without starting my own business. Here's how I did it. Step one, the first thing I did when you're looking to get into sales and you're looking to make a lot of money is the first thing you gotta focus on is volume. Everybody out there that wants to make a shit ton of money focuses on more the skill set and the bullshit it takes. The fact is, if you're gonna get really good at anything, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's business, whether it's talking to women, it doesn't matter what the skill is. You have to start off by having a high volume. A lot of people wanna get good at something without actually doing the volume and the work it actually takes to get good at it. You will eventually become good at every skill if you do enough volume at it and you're intelligently making tweaks to it and actually getting better at the action. But if you do not put the volume it takes to get good at something, all you're doing is leaving it up to chance. To give you an example, let's say I'm a server and I want to get better at communicating with people and with people that come into my restaurant. The best way to get a server to communicate better is to literally go serve, go do more stuff, and get feedback on how their service was, right? That's what a tip is. So if I want to make more tips as a server, my key is I got to serve more tables, get feedback, and then get better at it. But if let's say I'm a server and I don't wait enough tables, I don't actually go to the tables to get feedback, then I actually never know if I'm good or if I'm bad. Look at marketing, for example. If I'm a marketer and my goal is to become the best marketer in the world, the only way you get good at marketing is you got to spend money in ads, you got to tweak it, you got to figure out what you're good at and what you're bad at. But if I'm only spending, let's say, one ad a week, right? I'm spending $5,000 on one ad versus the human being that spends $5,000 and tests out 10 different ads. The person who tests out 10 different ads will always win because he has the quantity and the volume to actually figure out what works and what doesn't. So your first step, regardless of what age you are and you're trying to get good at something, is you just got to do more of the thing you want to get good at. That's in any area of your life. If I'm fat and I want to be fit, I got to go to the gym more. Forget about the fucking workout, forget about what you're eating, forget about the simplicity where most people get stuck. So your first step, above all, above anything else you do, is focus on volume. High volume equals high feedback. And then you take the feedback and then you make the quality of that volume better over time. Second step. The second step to you getting good at anything and increasing your skill set and getting really successful is intelligence. A lot of people out there work very hard. And if you're doing the volume already, whether it's posting videos on social media to get a high following, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, the key when you've done enough volume, which for most people, they never even get to that point, but if you've been doing something for, let's say, 100 days, for a year, for 2 years, and you're still not getting the outcomes, it's a lack of intelligence. I define intelligence as making things better. As simple as that. So if I'm a marketer and I'm doing a high volume of frequency, my key to making my marketing better is simply being more intelligent, especially if I'm doing the volume already. Intelligence is something you get from two things. You get help, you go hire a coach or somebody that can help you with getting better at that task or that goal. Second step is you consciously think about it. Most people do volume, but they're not consciously understanding what they're doing and why they're doing it. If you do not understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, how you do it is never going to change. In my sales career, when I went from 10K a month to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 to 70 to 80, whatever numbers I hit, as my income went up, what I was doing in terms of my sales calls and my volume was exactly the same. What changed was my level of understanding of why I was doing what I was doing, which meant my execution of how I did it was better. My tonality was better. My understanding of my script was better, which meant I executed it far better. And so your key when being intelligent, if you can't afford a coach or like somebody to help and make you better, then simply sit down for fucking 2 hours, look at the task you want to get good at, and consciously ask yourself, why am I doing this? Not why am I in sales, not the whole fucking mindset bullshit shit, but like, okay, why am I doing it this way? So if I do marketing, and let's say my goal is to be the best marketer, and I have a high volume of marketing I'm doing, then consciously look at your ads, look at your copywriting, and be like, okay, why am I doing it this way? Why don't I do it this way? Why don't I do it that way? Why don't I do it this way? So the key to being good at anything over a long period of time and having high success is you have to have the volume, but then you also have to be intelligent. Working hard alone will only get you so far, right? I can grind myself to 10, 20 grand a month in commission as a salesperson. Can I grind myself to $1 million a year in straight commission selling as a salesperson? Maybe, but it's not an intelligent way to do it, right? So I'm gonna give you an example. When I used to hop on sales calls, I was selling a sales training product. So I used to speak to salespeople all day long across 158 different industries. And I would speak to salespeople that were making $1 million. They were making as much as I was, but it took them 20 years to do it, right? 20 years, regardless of the industry. And they would give me excuses of why it took them 20 years, right? Like, oh, that's just the industry, it takes time. But I remember there was one night where I asked myself, there was a guy I met, he was 65, he was making about $1 million a year, which is really fucking good regardless. And then it got me thinking of like, how am I at 20 or 19 back then making $1 million a year in sales at 12% commission? This guy was in insurance making $1 million, he's at like 70% commission. Like, what's the key difference? And the two things it came down to was volume. He worked 5 hours a day while I worked 15 hours a day, right? So I'm automatically gonna get better quicker than he is in the time frame. But the second thing is intelligence. He didn't consciously understand his process. He went through the trial and error of trying to figure shit out to make that amount of money. Now for me, I was constantly having a high volume. I was constantly investing into education. So I became more intelligent quicker. So the key for you is like, if you want to play this game at a high level in any career field you're in, especially sales, intelligence is everything. Volume gives you the experience. Intelligence gives you the feedback you need to make that volume more productive. Third thing, if you are in sales or you are in any type of career, you have to have the volume, you have to have the intelligence. The third step is you need to have patience. A lot of people out there want to get big goals and they have big dreams of what they want to accomplish, but they do not give themselves a fair shot of accomplishing it because they don't give themselves enough time. People overestimate what they can do in a year and they underestimate what they can do in 5 years. When I say it took me 4.5 years to make $1 million in commissions, that isn't 4.5 years of working 5 hours a day or 8 hours a day. That was 4.5 years of working 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, no breaks, no funerals, no birthday parties. That was my entire life. My purpose in my life at that kind of story I was in was, Yash, you need to make 100 grand a month in commission. That's what life and success is about. And so if you look at person A and person B, person A is working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. He has a coach and he's intelligent. And let's say he gets to 100 grand a month in 7 years. For me, I was willing to make the sacrifice and put in the work needed because I was willing to work 15 hours a day, 7 days a week with high intelligence by getting the right coaching and mentorship, spending 15, 20, 30 grand, whatever it took to get to where I wanted to go. But that also meant I had to be patient. This was a skill that I didn't learn. In life, when you're looking to accomplish anything and you're not patient with yourself and you beat yourself over not getting XYZ outcome, an unrealistic time frame to achieve big goals, all you're gonna do is hate yourself. The example I give to people is like, there was a point in my life where I used to wrestle in high school. And I remember, my goal was to be a state champion. Never accomplished it, by the way, but my goal was that I really wanted to be a state level wrestler. And when I look back and I ask myself why I never became that, it wasn't lack of ability, which because I wasn't performing at like an Olympic level, it's just a state title, but it wasn't lack of ability. The key was I fell out of love with the sport because I wasn't patient. There was a practice I had, I remember, and my coach, his name was Frank, and Coach Frank, after I finished like a sparring round, he pulled me aside. He's like, hey man, like what's going on? I was like, what do you mean? Like I'm fine, all right? I was pissed off. And he was like, you need to chill out because you're gonna fall in love out of this and you're gonna resent wrestling and resent the sport. And that's exactly what ended up happening. I started resenting the sport because I had this unrealistic time frame on when I wanted to be a state champion, which was by sophomore year rather than senior year. I had an unrealistic time frame of when I wanted to achieve my goal. And all I did was resent myself and I resented the sport. And so if you can imagine, my output of volume in terms of going to practices, going to tournaments, that went down. So being patient isn't just like a life skill or something you need to do. It's something you have to do if you're ever gonna sustain the years it's gonna take to get good at something. If you can't sustain your energy, your output, and your success, you're always gonna give up before it is meant to happen. And so having the ability to do high amounts of volume, high amounts of intelligence while being patient with yourself until you achieve the goal, there are the 3 steps and the 3 recipes, if you will, for success. Everybody doesn't wanna do the volume, everybody doesn't wanna work intelligently, and everybody doesn't wanna be patient. And if all you did was do high amounts of volume, high amounts of intelligence, and high amounts of patience with yourself, it's unrealistic that you will not get the outcome. But if you do high amounts of volume and you're not intelligent, then you're eventually gonna fail. If you, let's say, have high amount of intelligence, but you have low amount of volume, you're not gonna succeed. The same way, if I have high intelligence, I've got high volume, but I'm not patient with myself, I'll eventually get super frustrated and give up. But if I do the volume, I'm intelligent, and I'm patient with myself, why wouldn't I achieve what I want to get to? And that's the question you gotta ask yourself, is if you do all 3 over a long enough time horizon, whether that's in sales, whether that's in marketing, whether that's in losing weight, whether that's in getting a wife, if you do the high amounts of activity, intelligence, and patience, why wouldn't you get to where you wanna go? And many times the answer you get is, well, I would. And so if you would, then you have to shut the fuck up and actually do those 3 things consistently day after day. If somebody wants to lose weight, and let's pretend they're like, I have the high amount of activity, I have the high amount of intelligence, and I'm patient. But then on the 6th day, they give up and they go back to eating like shit, which is what most people that are overweight go through. Then they're never gonna give themselves a fair shot to succeed because they've done it for 6 days and then they've given up. But if you do all 3 consistently, and the answer is you'll eventually get there, then you just have to keep going. Because what's your alternative? Question you always have to ask yourself whenever you feel like giving up or you feel like reducing the volume, the intelligence, or patience, always ask yourself, what's the alternative? Give up? When I was selling and I was stuck at 40 grand a month, 50 grand a month, there was a lot of extreme frustration that came with that. But what also came with that was a sense of reality, which was like, what is my alternative? If I give up, then I'm never gonna get there anyways. But if I keep going, I keep the volume, I keep the intelligence, I keep the patience, even if it takes me longer than I think it'll take me, I'll eventually get there. Most people are unhappy, not because they're not successful, but because they're not where they think they should be. But where you think you should be is always gonna be different from where you are today. That's the point of being a high performer or an entrepreneur. And so there's a standpoint of realisticness and patience you have to give to yourself to actually ever sustain being an entrepreneur, being a salesperson, being a married person, being a fit person. It just takes fucking time. These are the 3 steps: high volume, high intelligence, high patience. If you master these 3 things, there is no skill you cannot learn, and there is no way you will not eventually become successful.